sure I can dig up a fanny pack from the 80s, but okay.
You should.
And with that, we start our podcast for the week.
Oh!
Talking about fanny packs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's fanny episode. No, welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Stevie Collier, and I'm here with Andy Peloquin. And today we are honored to have Ben Hale, and he is the author of the Master Thief series. And today's excerpt is going to be from book 1, which is Jack of Thieves. And I keep wanting to say the Master Chief series from Halo, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a pretty awesome series, so I'm okay jumping in with that one.
I think everyone can. You know, I've met people who said like Halo sucks, and it's weird. Like we never became friends. You know? In high,
that's not weird at all, Stevie.
No.
That's not weird at all. I love Halo, so I know we are friends already.
Yeah, Andy, I know you're a Mass Effect guy.
You know, I played Halo, and I was never very good at those shooting games, but I enjoyed the hell out of those audiobooks. The book versions of the novel.
The book ones are really good. They're very good.
Right up until I think it's book 4 or 5, when it stops focusing on Master Chief John and it starts focusing on the secondary characters. That's where it lost me.
That's not nearly as good. The main Master Chief is just awesome. Like the book Halo Reach is just incredible.
Is it?
It's the Fall of Reach, right?
The Fall of Reach,
Fall of Reach.
Yeah, that's where I started, and I got hooked, and then I listened to the second one, which I think was on the Ring World, where they unleashed the Flood, and then there was one or two more that were really good, and I was like, okay, this is good. And then it talked about how the Master Chief was in like hyper sleep or something.
Yeah.
His spaceship was going off, and I was like, no, that's the guy that I was staying to hear, because you know it's like Lord of the Rings. You don't read or watch Lord of the Rings after Frodo and Aragorn and all of those other guys are gone. You know, you don't watch the Adventures of Merry and Pippin and expect an epic fantasy thing. It's more of a comedy. You know, like
no, you don't read them for the hobbits. You read them for Aragorn.
But yeah, like you take away the main characters, the sort of the guy that's been anchoring the show. And you know, this is actually the perfect way to lead into our conversation today. Master Chief is the perfect example of a character who just grabs you.
Yeah.
And such a solid anchor for the series. And then when they take him away, it's like you're kind of left reeling.
You know, and I love that whole idea of like a character, because I think from the beginning, right when I first started playing Halo, the very first time, I was sitting on a couch with my best friend, and I remember this even early, and this was before I started writing at all, there's this sense of defiance about the character in the game that you just get this feel that he can survive anything.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter what happens, he just is going to overcome it. And I just remember really gravitating to that and just connecting. I mean, this is a video game, but even in, like I have books, and the one that we're going to talk about today is my Jack of Thieves, and Jack kind of has a little bit of that too, is that he has that idea that it doesn't matter how dangerous the circumstances are, that he just has a way that he gets out of it. I mean, Jack kind of does it with by taunting people and laughing, but it's that same idea that really, really connects, at least with me.
You know, that sort of reminded me of the Jack of All Trades TV show. I don't know if either of you watched that with Bruce Campbell. I think it's...
I did. I watched like 3 episodes.
And it's just that fun where you know that he's going to get out at the end, but the way he does it is always so entertaining that you keep watching the show throughout the 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what show is this called?
It's called Jack of All Trades, and it's set in the Caribbean, I think, sort of during the pirate days, late pirate days. And
he's almost like a Zorro type character, that he does multiple things, but he also sneaks out and fights, and it's just kind of funny. And
he's a spy for the American government, spying on the British settlement in one of these Caribbean islands. And it's Bruce Campbell, the guy from Ash versus the Evil Dead, and it's just so over the top.
It's really over the top.
But that's what makes it so fun, because it knew exactly what it was supposed to be, and it stayed so true to that voice.
It's just fun.
Yeah. That's another character, kind of like or Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn's Robin Hood, which was, of course, parodied perfectly by Carrie Elwes' Robin Hood in Men in Tights. He was just these larger-than-life characters that you just sort of even though they're unreal, even though there's no way that sort of stuff would have happened, you just admire the sheer braggadocio or the swashbuckling daring do of these characters, and they're just so much fun to watch.
Yeah,
So, go ahead.
I just think that characters like that's the characters that we dive in when we're reading. We want a character that just feels both real and is something that I think most of us wish we had in ourselves. And, we want that sense of courage or humor or, that sense of defiance when life is really hard, because all of us have lives that are challenging in one way or another. And so when we read a book that personifies that for us, that just is magical. I mean, think of like Harry Potter. So one of the quintessential, it's so iconic of what this kid that goes to a magic school, but he broke through because it connects with all of us, that sense of isolation in our youth, that we just don't really feel connected, and he becomes a wizard out of it. I mean, that's just so awesome. And even then, there's still that little bit of sense of isolation, but he gradually overcomes it, and there's awesome magic. And so it kind of has all of these fantasy elements, but at its heart, the story is a story about a kid who is isolated and realizes how strong he really is. Realizes the courage that he possesses and that he can overcome his foes. And if you stripped away all of that, took away all the magic and everything, it would still be an incredible story just because of who Harry is, and that's what connects with us.
Yeah, that's one thing that fantasy, speculative fiction, I'd say, overall does really well. You don't see it a lot in thrillers or mysteries, and some romances too. Like romances, for example, they focus a lot on the challenges of interpersonal relationships. Mysteries and thrillers focus on what it means to be human in a modern life, or different elements like that. But really, the things that drill down to what it means to be just a human in general is science fiction and fantasy, because we're able to step back from religion, politics, race, belief, profession, just life in general, and we're able to take a look at things through totally new eyes. No one would think of Aragorn as being a character like their neighbor next door or the guy at the coffee shop, and yet
that would be pretty awesome.
But if you look at all of Aragorn's characteristics, his extreme loyalty, his selflessness, his willingness to say, no, I'm not going to take the ring because it's the wrong thing. These are all characters that we want to see and we can see in our everyday lives. I'm putting together this anthology, the Ragged Heroes anthology. And in one of the emails that I sent out, I asked people, what is your definition of a hero? And someone emailed me today with this amazing definition of what it means to be a hero. Let me see if I can find it.
Was it just my name?
No, it was not.
Are you sure?
That was the villain one.
That was the villain one.
No,
this sidekick.
This reader just told me, I think a hero is anyone who puts aside their own life or time to do something for someone else, even the smallest thing. We all know about the doctors, firemen, cops, or nurse whose lives are dedicated to helping others. But what about the neighbor who gets groceries for her elder or sick neighbor, or the person who fixed the kid's bike because his dad or mom couldn't? Those are the heroes we never hear about. There are thousands out there. They never expect anything in return, but they are there. And that just struck me, because it's so easy for us to look at the hero, the knight in shining armor, or the noble king, or the powerful mage. But then, like you said with Harry Potter, he had the chosen one vibe, but he didn't know that until much later. And all he was just a tenacious kid who refused to give up. And that, I think, is what made so many people connect with him so quickly, is they recognized, okay, this kid has all these virtues that I want to personify. So it's sort of wish fulfillment. I want to be more like Harry Potter. And that's what sucks you into a story so well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's me. When I was growing up, I always used fantasy as an escape, and I only read protagonists that were male because I wanted to connect more with somebody like that. And to this day, I still want, whenever I'm reading about my main character, I want to have something in common with them, or see some of my traits in them and live through them in this world. So characters like that, they always stick around in my head a little bit more.
Yeah. I think there are two types of characters that never leave. there are characters like these ones that we're talking about that are so grounded and real, that their struggles, you connect with them on a very real level, and so you say, yeah, that's me, or that's who I want to be, or that's who I wish I could be, and you immediately identify them. So you've got characters like Katniss Everdeen or Triss from the Divergent series, where a lot of people identifying with their strength. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got characters like Tasselhoff Burrfoot. I don't know if you guys have read the Dragonlance series, but Tasselhoff Burrfoot was this Kender, which is like a ripoff of a Hobbit, and he's a kleptomaniac, absolute kleptomaniac.
Oh, yeah, I know who that is. Yeah.
He steals everything. But the way he goes about it is so hilarious and so innocent that you can never get mad at him. Like if it was a murder mystery or something, the kleptomaniac would be the bad guy or whatever. But this thing, you just laugh the entire, I don't know, 15 or 25 books, because the way he does it is so funny. And that's the sort of larger than life, exaggerated character like Errol Flynn's Robin Hood that you just connect with because, oh my God, this is so much fun.
So I have a character in my series that I published this last year. It's loosely connected to my Jack of Thieves one. And in this book, there's a character who, her name is Marrow, and the way that she's written, it's like she has a second mind. And then this second personality doesn't ever have a name. She says she, like it's another person, but she's talking about herself. And the second personality basically has like all the magic ability, but no control whatsoever. Like if she thinks it, she does it. And like at one point they're sneaking into a city, like her and her brother, and he's like, oh, let's get disguises. And she's like, okay. And the next moment he's a dwarf. And he's like, I'm a dwarf. And then he looks in the mirror and he's like, I'm a female dwarf. And she's like, you look good. And like and she starts to laugh because she thinks it's funny. And he's like, please tell me this isn't permanent, because it totally could be. And so she does crazy, crazy stuff. And anytime you're thinking, oh man, there's nothing that can happen. At one point they're underwater and she gets an army of sharks, literally an army of sharks, and like commands them, and is riding on two sharks and just laughing the whole time, thinking it's the funniest thing in the world. And the main character thinks in that moment, I thought that we'd reach the pinnacle of madness with her. And then here she is with an army of sharks. And it's just so hilarious that it's just bizarre and funny. And it's just good. Every reader that I know that has contacted me said they love this character because she's so funny. And even though she's not like grounded, it's just someone that you think would be so fun to hang out with, because they're just so wild and unexpected, and they just kind of lighten your lives because they aren't what we expect.
Yeah, probably one of the greatest characters that I have ever read, and who I doubt will ever leave me, is the orangutan librarian from Terry Pratchett's Wizard novels. Exactly. That face that you're making, Stevie. Stevie's going, what? It's exactly as crazy as it sounds. The librarian of this magic wizard university did a spell wrong and turned himself into an orangutan. And he just stayed that way because it's easier to go swinging among the shelves to find the books and stuff. And so there's this giant orangutan in this wizard's library. And it's so out of the blue, but it's so perfectly Terry Pratchett, just that droll British humor. And it is the greatest character, one of the best characters in the whole series, because it's absolutely different. They're like, if you want to get a book from the librarian, you better bring bananas. It's just crazy stuff like that.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the kind of characters. They're so off the wall in so many ways that they stick with you, and you can't stop thinking about them. I don't think I will ever read a character as original as this orangutan librarian from Wizard University. Now, I don't think anyone will ever match Terry Pratchett's off-the-wall weirdness in this one, because it's just such a great character.
So my character, Jack, this character Jack missed in this Thief series, I wanted to kind of straddle that line between grounded and almost like a little over the top, just be right there in the middle. And so he can steal anything, and he doesn't really have magic per se. He does have extra abilities, and I won't get into the reasons why, but he does have some extra like agility and some strength. But realistically, he doesn't have any extra powers or anything. He doesn't have magic. He's not even phenomenal with a sword, but he's just so smart that he just figures out a way, and he's so daring that in certain situations, when other people would be afraid, he just thinks it's hilarious. He relishes the challenge. and he finds a way out. Even though it's impossible, he still figures out a way out, and then just taunts his foes because he did, and they thought it was impossible, and he does anyway. And so I had so much fun writing this character, because from each book to the next, the challenges that he ends up facing, the foe that he faces is like one of the most dangerous ever. And every time they encounter, he ends up with scars. The other guy does, not him. Just because he's so good at getting out of things. And that, I think, because he's almost normal, but he just figures things out. I think that's the reason why he was such a fun character to both write and read.
Is he fearless or something?
So have you ever met someone that when there's something that's hard, it's almost like they don't recognize that it's hard. It's like they just rise to that challenge and they must overcome it.
Myself.
Okay, well, so I have a little bit of that in me. When something's hard, I look at it and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do it, just because it looks like it can't be done, so I want to do it.
I feel like a lot of authors do this because, they're looking at, I need to get this, 100,000+ manuscript done within, a month or 2 months, and that's a huge thing. I think I could go on a full spiel on why I think being an author is hard, but
it's way hard. It's way hard. But for this character, when he encounters situations, he enjoys that. Whereas most people would be like, I don't want to get put into challenging situations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know a lot of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I know we skipped over this. And this reminded me, Andy, do you want to do a cool thing of the week, or do you just want to continue with the topic? I don't care.
We're already on this. Let's get into this a little bit more.
Okay.
We can do the cool thing of the week.
Do you want me to do the commercial?
We'll do that after. We're having fun talking.
All right. I didn't know how you want to say it. All right.
One of the characters that stuck out to me most. Everyone knows Gandalf, right? Gandalf is this sagely, fatherly, wise, solid character. And then there's characters like the father of the gods, the good gods. But then in this series called, I think it's the Deathgate Cycle by Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss, I believe they wrote it. There's the character Zifnab. Now Zifnab is a parody of both that god-like character and Gandalf. Basically, he's this old wizard dude, but he's terrible at wizardry. And everything he tries to do screws up, but it ends up working out in the end. But he can't do anything correctly, and he's just so confused the whole time. And it's such a funny change. It's such a dark fantasy series. It's grim and all of that. There's these brutal settings and all of that. But then there's this character, and he just injects this spirit of humor into it. And I know that in a lot of the best let's say Marvel movies, for example, or even the DC movies. If you guys watch the Justice League movie, you'll agree that most of the best parts of the movie were the jokes, because they really help to lighten things up. There's all this darkness and end of the world, Steppenwolf fighting Superman, and then the Flash cracks a joke like, oh, you didn't know he was Bruce Wayne. Just stuff like that. That's what really stands out so much more in darker fantasies, just those moments of levity.
Well, and that's what we really connect with, because for most of us, and our lives aren't doom and despair every moment for decades on end. I really hope it's not. And if anyone listening it is, I'm really sorry. But those moments of levity are the ones that we live for. That's what brings us that joy, that excitement that lets us, push past, the challenges and difficulties that we face. For example, I have 6 kids. My oldest is 11. My youngest is 1. They're all little. And I love it. My life as a dad is so much fun, but it is really hard. It's really challenging.
How old are you, Ben?
I'm 35.
You look so much younger than that. I never would have thought 35. That's crazy.
Well, thank you. I still have my hair. My brothers are losing theirs. I still have mine. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, that is something to be grateful for. I have too much hair, so...
You have too much hair.
Yeah,
that's not something to complain about.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So, but it's hard. My life is hard, but it's that moments like my little 3-year-old is just is so cute and crazy. And the door to my downstairs we lock when I go down to work, because otherwise they come down and they, want to play with me or make a mess. And so I went upstairs to get a drink, and I talked to my wife for 30 seconds, and I turn around to go close the door, or to go back downstairs, and it's locked. And I turn around and see her with this little like devilish grin on her face, and she just starts to laugh like because she'd locked it on me to keep me upstairs. Moments like that, like that's what we thrive on. That's what makes us excited. And the same thing applies in a book. Those moments that are just incredible and amazing and human. That's what makes a book connect with us.
And it's usually those scenes you don't think about. You've written it, you've forgotten about it, you've edited it, and you put it out there, and then you get an email and someone said, "I love this part." And you're like, "What? That part?" It's not even one of the main aspects of the novel. I had one, I posted it on Facebook where in one of my one of my stories that I write weekly, this old lady gets blown up by this guy, and he does it on accident. And I got this email. This guy really wanted to talk to me about why I blew up this old lady, because it really stuck with him. And I got another email last week saying he gave me a 4 out of 5 star review because my book triggered his PTSD. And that, to me, I was like, I wrote a book that triggered this guy's post-stress traumatic. Wait, what is it? PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah. And I felt kind of bad, but he was upset with scenes that I never would have thought about. So I know what you're saying. And I think it's cool that you can actually look at getting locked out of your office as a good thing. Because I think a lot of dads would have been mad at that. But you actually took yourself out of that position and looked back like, these are good times.
I mean, that's what we live for. I mean, I could tell so many stories. Like when my son and they thought it'd be fun to get into the Nesquik, and they spread it all over the kitchen floor, and it's all over them. It's in their hair. And my wife was like, "I need to go, shower them because but it turns the tub chocolate." And they think that's so much fun. It's the chocolate bathtub. I mean, this is like Willy Wonka in real life. And they're having a blast. And my wife, she wants to be stern, like, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this." But she starts laughing and takes a picture, and we call it the Great Nesquik Caper.
That is great.
That's just awesome. So
I'm sorry,
I haven't done that in a book yet. I plan to.
I was gonna say, the things your kids do you implement them into your books?
I do some. Actually, the character that I mentioned, Marrow, the one that's kind of crazy, I definitely base that on some of the things that my daughter will do, because she's so erratic. I mean, she's 3, and so every thought that pops in her head is of paramount importance and must be followed through with right in that moment. Even if it's like, you already changed into your pajamas 4 times today, you don't need to do it again. And so that is what it's just fun. That's what life is about. That's what makes life meaningful for us, is those moments. And literature, I mean, great literature allows us to connect with, even a fictional character, but it becomes real because those are moments that we can feel like are real, that we can imagine are real.
That reminds me of a question for both of you guys. I've read a lot of books, and I don't reread books, but when I do, it's when a character really stood out to me. And Andy knows, well, actually, it was one of Andy's books because it hit me so much that I wanted to contact him, and that's how we became friends and created this show, because I love the Hunter of Varamis so much. Partly because he's just this great character. He's dark, and I really loved being in this guy's mind for a really long time. And he kind of reminded me of, he made real decisions, and I love that. If that makes sense, he made real decisions.
Yeah.
A lot
of it
of
wasn't an artificial, like, we're going to pretend like this is real. It was like, this is a real situation that could happen, and how he would react to it.
And I've actually taken that from Andy and put it into my books and really put in, work into the psychology. But which brings me to my question for you guys is, have you ever been so into your main character that sometimes you think he's real and you don't want to end a series because it's like you're losing him, because you could probably sit down with this guy and know what book he would buy at Barnes & Noble, what he would get for lunch. You know him that well.
So my Jack, since we're talking about him, he there was, by the time I'd finished book 1, he was so real that there were certain things that would come up. And I'm not a type of person that taunts other people. That's not my personality to do. But there would be statements or phrases that this character would say as I was writing and it would come out and it would feel like it was coming from him. It wouldn't come from me. That's not something that would naturally come from my voice or that I would think of. And what's funny is that it was so real to one reader. They listened to it on audio because all my books are on audio. And he gave it either like a 1 or a 2-star review and said that this character clearly was like my alter ego, like as the author, and that I hated rich people and thought they deserved to be lied to and stolen from and all of this stuff, because that's what he does in the book, is that he hates people that have, you know, money, entitlement, really. He hates entitlement. And so he thought that that was me, that it was so real to him. He thought that that was actually me and my actual personal views, which I just laughed at, because I'm like, man, I wrote that really well, apparently.
Yeah,
that was me.
I love that your review gets hurt because to somebody it was so real. Just like my 4 out of 5 star exit triggered the PTSD, which it's crazy how much as writers we can affect people's lives because they spend a lot of time with these people that it becomes real to them. I know it's happened to me. I'm not afraid to say it. When I finish a book, I look around like, why is everybody acting so weird? I just had this traumatic experience and everyone's acting normal, like nothing happened.
It's true. You're like, this person died.
Yeah. And I'm like Andy. What was that character's name? I read the first book. I think it's Auburn Summer or something. The Dragonlance series.
Yeah.
Auburn, whatever.
Dragons of Autumn Leaves or
okay, something with autumn.
Yeah.
But I also like Tassel or whatever his name is, but I also like the dwarf who's kind of like his friend, you know?
Right. Yeah. I can't remember his name.
He hates the water. He hates the water. And realistic things and characters like that really stand out to me when an author takes time to put in, you know, this character's psychological fears.
So I have one of my series is an urban fantasy, and it's kind of like, I started with the idea of like how Harry Potter and like that whole archetype of a kid goes to magic school kind of idea. But I wanted to put it in the context of what would happen if magic became public and how the nations of the world would grapple with that, and then the war that would ensue between the villain and all that. And that's a 5-book series. And in this book series, the main character, she learns to fly and use gravity magic where she wills herself off the earth. And in the book, I describe that fear of heights is a precursor to it because their body can fly, but they're afraid of heights because they don't know how to yet. And so it's like this check that I can, but I don't know how to wield this power, and so I'm afraid of it. And so she has to learn to overcome that fear and use that ability, and then she just starts to rise off the ground. And I thought that idea was so cool. But I mean, when you're talking psychological, you know, fears and concerns like that, that's real to us. Everyone's got something they're afraid of or they're concerned about. That's what it helps to, you know, make that character more than just this fictional person.
Yeah, definitely. And I've learned the importance of that as I've kept writing. And I've actually kind of taken from Andy, and I've actually started doing research on stuff like this. Something I've never done before because I really want to expand my characters. I don't know if you've read the book Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great book because in like 50 pages or less, you know the characters like you've known them for years, which is really hard to do, in my opinion. And if you go and look through his reviews on Amazon, it's always about the character. It's always about the character. And yeah, so if I had to say like characters that have stuck with me, it would be Andy's book. And what's weird is that book by Brent Weeks, we were just talking about, Andy, Night Angel.
Yeah, Night Angel.
The Four Territories' main character, Esh, was actually based on that main character, but I stopped reading the what?
Kylar Stern, the young guy.
But I didn't like the book, so I stopped halfway. But I love the character so much
the hunter was based on Durzo Glint, the old guy.
His trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So and some of the sorcery was based on that, but it's funny how I didn't really care for the book, so I stopped halfway. But I love the main character, and I don't know how that's possible. So I guess
one of the things that I loved about Kings of the Wild, I enjoyed the book probably more than I enjoyed 90% of the books that I read last year. But the thing that stuck out to me most was how one of his characters had a side mission that sort of defined him in a small way. There's this character who wants to find an owl bear, this fictional creature that he insists that it's real.
Like a Bigfoot character, like hunting this.
Well, it's a land full of monsters, and there's this one monster that no one's ever seen, but he knows it's real. It's an owl bear, and it's exactly what it sounds like, a bear with an owl's head. And the whole book, he thinks it's real, and no one else believes him. And then at the end, he has this moment of justification where it turns out it's real. And just for me, that was such a moment of humanity where this guy was like, I believe in something, and this is sort of the thing that drives me. Beyond his hunt for the cure for this disease, that's the big, heroic thing. But then there's this little tiny personal quest, like or from Zombieland. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Zombieland.
Oh yeah.
But
the Twinkie.
Woody Harrelson's, the search for a Twinkie, and that goes beyond the desire to survive or mate or find food. It's just this guy that loves Twinkies so much, and it really makes the character so much more memorable than other zombie characters. Like, none of the characters from The Walking Dead stand out to me as much as Woody Harrelson's Zombieland character, because it's such a quirky human little thing. And I'm sorry to keep monopolizing the conversation, but I learned this thing from the series Westworld. I don't know if you guys have seen
by Michael
one.
Crichton.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
The new version with Anthony Hopkins and
is it good?
It's slow, but it's super good. And in the second episode, I think, or the first episode, they're talking about how they made the artificial intelligence hosts seem real. They said, we got the skin right. People said it was fine. They didn't stay. We got, we made them super sexy. They didn't stay. We got the clothes. We got everything. They didn't stay. We even got the movements and things like that, but they didn't. People didn't really believe that they were real until they added like a tick or a reverie. And it's basically these things that define the humans. Maybe one of them wants to get out of Dodge and go to another city. Another one has another small desire. Another one has a memory of her daughter that was lost. Or just these little tiny things. And it's basically the flaw in their programming, or the flaw that takes them from being these perfect robotic creatures to human-like beings that people will say, yeah, I can see this being as a real person. And that was just such a light bulb moment for me, because it was like, okay, I've got all these characters, I've got to give them these reveries, these two details. The guy who's a badass swordsman, but he scratches his nose like this. Just small details.
Now I want to scratch my nose like that.
Yeah, I just started doing it.
Or this character that I just wrote, he has this way of saying and stretching it on like annoyingly long. And it's just these little tiny details that kind of make them stand out from all the supporting background characters that have to die or that end up being the antagonists or all of that. These little details that make these characters come to life, and more than the characters come to life in this context of a story, make us connect with them as readers.
Dude, that's just awesome. I mean, those little facets are what. I mean, a swordsman is cool, but it's those extra things, like a swordsman who has a scar because of when he did something stupid as a kid or something like that. Like, those are the things that make them more than just the archetype, more than just fiction. That's when they start to transcend that and connect with us. We've touched on like 3 different things. I don't know if we've done this intentionally or not, but there's 3 aspects that, in my mind, make a story great. You've got the characters, you've got the story, and then you've got the world. And great books are ones that hit 10s on all 3 of those. So you mentioned like the Night Angel series. You loved the characters, but either the world or the story you just couldn't connect with, and so those weren't as good.
Yeah,
and so
true.
But when those are, that's when it's incredible. I have a series, actually the one with Marrow, that one the crazy character, that I was writing a sequence, and it was kind of that, traditional training sequence of a mage that learns to be a soldier kind of thing. And I wrote this section, and it just didn't hit right for me. I was really irritated with it, and it just kept nagging at me and nagging at me. And so I go back and I was like, how can I make this so it's not normal? And I ended up, I racked my brain for like a day or two, which for me is a very long break at this point. I've been doing it long enough that to not write for a day or two is really a long time for me. And but then I figured it out. And what I did is I created these objects called requiems that it's like this sphere that you step into, and then you get to dive into someone else's memory and fight in their memory, almost like a virtual reality, like the ultimate virtual reality.
That is
and you
epic.
fight in any memory from any soldier or person who has created a memory from any war, any bandit attack or whatever. And then they put it in these things, and you go fight in their memories, and you can die in their memories, and then you get to restart and try again. And I just love that. And not just that idea, but like the characters would go in and then not do it right and die, and then have to figure out how to do it right.
So from such a stressful moment, you came up with something so freaking cool. Like, I think that's the most fantastical thing anyone's said on this show. I mean, that was like nerdy fantasy, right? I mean, it's just so
totally nerdy.
God, it's so fantasy. I think today we've talked about dwarves, kindling, whatever they're called, and Kender. What are they? Kenders. I just think, wow, that's a really great idea. I was going to ask you, going back to like the Westworld with the ticks and stuff. Does Jack have any ticks or something like he can't stand, like little things that make him more realistic?
He can't stand it when someone is entitled and has money. He feels like a compulsion to steal from them, like to tear them down from their glass palace.
And so
he has to do it.
As we know now, that's like your subconscious, that you subconsciously hate rich people, right?
Apparently.
Yeah. Come on, Ben.
And the thing about him is that he's really good at it. Really, really good at it. And so whenever someone, like in the series, when there's people that are in that position of either power or wealth, he, like at one point, he decides to go steal from something, and from a person, he's going to go steal it. And they're like, you're going to risk your life for this? And he's like, yeah. Like, isn't it obvious? Because he just can't stand when someone is entitled and has that arrogance, which is really funny because he's kind of arrogant, which is really fun to play with.
Well, here's a question. You know who Goku is from Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah.
You know how he's like the all-powerful guy, like you put him against anybody, he's going to win?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like Jack's kind of that character. And I kind of want to write a character that way, but how do you make a plot? How do you fight something that's so good? How do you have a climax? You know what I mean?
So
like, how do you defeat Jack?
The fun thing with this character, and the reason why it was fun to do, is because he doesn't have those powers. He doesn't have magic. He's not like the gifted swordsman. And so what that means is that he's overcoming people that have those abilities. Like when he's fighting people, he's fighting against people who have more power, have more money, have more soldiers, have magic, are incredible with a sword. One girl that initially is a foe has body magic, and so she can make herself stronger or faster or more agile, and he has to try to defeat her. And even when he's like running away from her, he's making comments about like how pretty she is.
That's awesome.
Just because he doesn't have those abilities, he's like Goku if you took away all of his powers, and yet somehow he still beats everyone that does have powers. Because he's smart, because he has to figure out a way. I don't want to give it away because it's one of the best plot devices I've ever used, ever. Across 19 fantasy books, and it's still, I think, one of the best plot devices I've used. But in the third book, there's a lot of questions being presented, and so the reader really doesn't know. There's a certain question like, what's going on here? And at one point, he comes right out and says exactly what he is doing, but he says it in the context that you don't catch it. You don't realize that he's laying out exactly what he's doing. And at the very end, you realize it. And if you go back and reread it, he's like, I told everyone what I was doing, but no one understood it. But he did, and he stole it, and he's just really clever. And I think that's why that character was so much fun to write and to connect with, because in life, like going back, we're touching a lot on like how this connects with real life, is that lots of things in our lives feel totally insurmountable, that we have no power, that we're powerless and we can't overcome it. And maybe it's like a bank, maybe it's our job, maybe it's finances, maybe it's family members that are crazy, whatever it is. Like there's things about our lives that are insurmountable and seem like they can't be defeated. And for Jack, he just figures out a way to defeat it. And I think that's what, at least for me, I connect with, is that sometimes I wish there's things that no matter how impossible they seem, I could just figure out a way and conquer it, and then laugh because I did.
So this was not your first book though, was it?
No, this was my 16th book.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at your Audible. And guys, if you're listening or watching, go check out his Audible. I mean, just go check out any of his books. They're so professional looking. And I mean, he's got it. I mean, when he says he's got it all on audio, I mean, he's got it all on audio and great ratings too. So go check that out.
One of mine on audio on Audible has over 3,000 ratings.
Yeah, I saw that. That's magnificent.
Yeah, that one's done really good. I think Jack has like 1,000 ratings on Audible. 18 of my 19 books are in Audible right now. The 19th one's in recording. It should be coming out in the next couple months.
Jeez, man, that is freaking awesome. Andy, how do you want to do this now?
Commercial break.
You want to do commercial break?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I will go ahead and start real quick. And then after this, we will get to the reading. Right, Andy?
Yep.
Okay. So this episode was brought to you by The Fate-Marked Epic by David Estes. An ancient prophecy foretold their coming. The chosen few who will bring peace to a land embroiled in a century of mistrust and war. When kings start dying, that hope and belief swiftly turns to fear. Rowan Lauren is one of the fate-marked, but has hidden his mark of power his entire life, fearing the damage it might cause to those around him. A great evil is coming. He can't hide anymore. Action, adventure, deception, insanity, and lots more. Read this #1 Amazon bestseller for free right now on Kindle Unlimited. They are the fate-marked, misunderstood, worshipped, hated, murdered at birth. Their time to step into the light has come. Find out more about this breathtaking fantasy epic at davidestesbooks.blogspot.com. That's ESTES, David Estes Books.blogspot.com.
Well done,
wow,
Steve.
I'm really impressed with the voices.
Thank you. That's my commercial voice. All right, Eddie.
I'll have to send an apology note to David saying, sorry about Stevie, guys.
I hope he's watching.
Wait, I'm thinking that you already have this apology note already written. It's like a custom form that's just you send out every week.
It's the apology for Stevie.
I have like an A, B, and C. Sorry for A, Stevie messing up.
You just check the appropriate boxes.
Yes. C, we talked about poops and penis or something like that.
What? Are you blaming the penis on me?
No, I didn't say Stevie. I didn't say Stevie.
Oh. Okay. Ben's like, penis? Wait, where's this coming from? Andy, are we waiting for the last commercial for later?
No, yeah, we'll do it later.
Okay. All right, the reading.
You know what? I don't know if we're going to have the time for the reading today because we are down to our last 10 minutes. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry, Ben.
Oh, no, I'm not worried at all. This has been a blast. I've really enjoyed this. So
why don't you give us the 5-minute talk about the series, just so that people know what to expect?
I'm actually really interested in this, by the way. I want to know more about Jack. I love characters like that.
So let me take a broader approach real quick, and then I'll talk about Jack.
Please.
So I've always been fascinated by when you know how when you play like a RPG game and you come across the ruins of something, and at one point I was playing and I paused and I was looking at the ruins, and I remember thinking why did anyone ever abandon this fortress? Like, what made this become abandoned? I mean, someone built spent a lot to build this fortress. It's out in this awesome spot, you know, super defensible. So why was it left? Why was it abandoned? And why was it left for so long? Why didn't someone come in and start using it? And that idea is always fascinating with me. And the idea came to create what I call a timeline fantasy. And what I mean by that is that you create multiple series in one world that are far enough apart in time that you can see how one impacts the other, like thousands of years apart. How, to put it in more colloquial terms, it would be like Middle Earth evolving into actual Earth. And that you could see how a fantasy world at one point was a fantasy world, and it slowly became a modern world. And magic is in hiding and things like that. And so I currently have 5 different series that are all in this timeline that span 25,000 years. When I'm done, I want to span 50,000 years from the dawn of this like world all the way through to the end. And Jack of Thieves falls in the middle of this story. And initially, he just seems like no one. Like he's a thief. He's got a normal motivation. It's a family type motivation. You don't discover it initially, so I don't want to give it away, but it has something to do with his family. And he goes into the Thieves Guild because he's hunting. He's trying to find someone. He's trying to seek revenge and that retribution. And so when he goes into the Thieves Guild, he has his own motivations. And he didn't do it because he is really good at stealing. But within the Thieves Guild, he kind of finds where he fits. And at one point, he goes in, there's this dwarf character who is totally shaved bald, and he's kind of like the Q from James Bond. And he makes thief gadgets that then these thieves go out and use. And one is like a shadow hook that is like a grappling hook, but instead of attaching onto something solid, it attaches to shadow. So he can climb using a shadow hook.
That is freaking awesome.
Which, in my mind, would be so cool that, you know, anything that shadow you'd be able to climb, that just seems so powerful. But any light would cause it not to be able to bond anymore. So you've got to be really good with it.
Sounds dangerous, yeah.
Yeah,
I could see some good scenes with the, you know, sun coming up or something. Like, oh, shit, I better get up there.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, these tools have different facets. He gets a crossbow that, like, it's a hand crossbow that he can use different bolts that will change it to a different enchantment, that it could be like a freezing bolt or a fire bolt or an explosive one, all based on the enchantments that he creates. And this is all what this dwarf makes for him. And so he goes out and starts to be a thief. But it's not, I think one of the things I wanted to do from the get-go is I didn't want him to steal normal things like, oh, you go steal a crown or a jewel. The very first task that he gets is he has to steal a war. He has to steal a war, not
a war.
A war.
Like W-A-R.
Like a war, W-A-R. He has to go steal a war.
What?
Yeah.
How do you steal a war?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like wars are fought because one party wants power, like there's always this imbalance. And so he has to go change that imbalance and steal the war. And so that's the type of tasks he steals. It's not objects usually. Objects might help him get there, but he's stealing things because he's looking to alter, you know, the balance of countries and kingdoms and power. And that's what he goes after to steal. And what he has to face, each book, I wanted him to go up against something more. And I remember writing book 2 and thinking at the end of book 2, how can I possibly go beyond what I've had him steal in book 2? And then in book 3, what he steals is really awesome.
That is really cool. I say this a lot, but I really want to read this book, or at least listen to it. Because already I've fallen in love with Jack. I was just telling my grandma that when I have a son, I want to name him Jack. It's so weird that it's ironic that the next day we're talking about a Jack.
Yeah.
Just tangent of the week. Don't worry, Ben. I have tangents that I go on.
That's okay. Tangents are what make things fun.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here to make things fun. So I think that's Andy. I think that's it, right?
Yep, that's our time for today.
Yeah.
Ben, why don't you tell our readers where they can, our viewers, listeners, where they can find you?
So Amazon is the best. Go search Ben Hale, Hale, and you'll find all of my fantasy books there.
There are
I still have another like 4 series to write in this world. So there's a lot. It's all on Kindle Unlimited. So if you are a Kindle Unlimited reader, then you can get them all for free. Like I said, they're all on Audible. A lot of them are boxed sets on Audible, like omnibus editions. And so you can get several that are like 25 to 30 hours of listening for 1 credit, which is awesome. So if you're an Audible listener, you can definitely listen to and participate a lot. I will say that each series, like I get people that ask a lot which series to start. But because of the way that I plan the world, I already know what's going to happen in other series. And so I put the plot hooks in the one I'm currently writing. So when I write the one next year, and if you read that one first, the one from years in past will feel like sequels.
Okay.
So it's not one direction. You can start in any of my series, the first of anything. If you're interested in Jack, start with Jack because he's great and he's fun, and it will lead into another book and into it. You don't have to start at one place.
Yeah, I like Jack. I think I would start at Jack. And guys, go check out his book covers. I mean, they are freaking awesome. I mean, I love it when the author takes time to actually put out a super freaking sweet professional book cover. And and plus his books also have maps in them. And I want to get started on this. So great. And are you self-published?
I'm hybrid. My audiobooks are actually traditionally published.
I didn't even know you could do that. Through Podium?
Through Podium. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to look into that. That's really cool.
Podium is awesome. They've done phenomenal for me. I think last year, probably like 55% of my income came from audiobooks.
Wow. So they promote it for you then?
The biggest thing they do, honestly, the biggest thing that they do is they connect you with narrators that already have a really big following. Like the narrator that they got for my series last year is a female narrator, and she had narrated sections of books for Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan.
Holy crap. That's an achievement in itself, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. One of my books got nominated for a VAA, like a voice audio book award. So they do really good quality work. They get really good narrators that already have a big following. And so what that means is that listeners already like those narrators, and so they follow the narrator to my books. Like Derek Perkins has done most of my books. He's from England. He's got a way better voice than I do. I mean, he comes out and he's like, I think he did Jack of Thieves. So he's like, Jack of Thieves by Derek Perkins. Like, it's just,
I love that. Yeah.
Awesome. He does way better.
So cool.
Yeah, just Audible, Ben Hale, or Amazon, Ben Hale. Either way is probably the easiest.
Well, great, man. So again, guys, that's Ben Hale. Check him out on Amazon. He's on Audible. I know you're going to love him because, I mean, Jack, guys. Jack, it's Jack. It's lovable Jack. He hates money, and so does Ben, apparently. Hates people with money.
I really don't feel that way. Don't think that.
No. All right, guys. Well, this has been the Fantasy Fiends podcast. Andy, do you know who we're having next week?
Yeah, next week we've got JT Williams.
Why does that sound so familiar?
Because he's a member of our Ragged Heroes anthology.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. And so check that out too. The anthology of I say that because I'm in there, and plus it's going to be freaking awesome. All right, guys. That's it for this week's episode. Ben, thank you so much for being with us today. I look forward to re-listening to this as I edit, because chock full of good shiz in there, man. All right, guys, we love you. You're amazing. Have an amazing week. Don't forget to smash that like button. We will see you guys next week on another fantastical episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. This is Stevie Collier. Good night.